So I'm now recording. So this is the official welcome to the BA Education. That's the Bachelor of Arts in Education, major in Education in Global Contexts, an information session for prospective students. Really happy to have you all here today, or those that are watching the recording. And for the next hour or so, we'll tell you a little bit more about this really interesting program. I'm joined by colleagues and alumni and a current student, and I'll introduce myself as well. So like I said, just take note, this session is being recorded, and some of the recording might include some question and answer period at the end. And like I said, if you turn your camera on at some point or speak, it could be part of the recording, but also there's options to send questions via the chat. And if you are someone who is watching this recording from the future, hello from the past. That is the joke I make every time that I think everyone appreciates. And the other thing that's my little caveat is that if you are watching this recording or you're seeing these slides that have been posted online, this presentation was done December 2025. If anything is mentioned in this presentation and you see a discrepancy or something different than what's posted online or maybe sent in an email, it could be that things have changed since this presentation, so we will defer to that. For the most part, things don't change that much once the admission cycle has begun, but it's always just my little caveat. So who are the four people here with you today that do have their videos on? I am Mitchell Miller. I am the program director for the BA Education. I'm also associate chair of the Department of Integrated Studies and Education, which is the department that the program is in. I'm also a faculty member and teach within the BA Education program, and I myself am an alumnus of the Faculty of Education. Unfortunately, back in the day when the BA Education program didn't exist, I did our Bachelor of Education program, and that's why this is a vintage sweater that I'm wearing, because it is from my time as a student and still fits. So I thought I would dust it off today, since I am really repping McGill Education Pride now and always. And I'll pass it to my colleague, Tabitha.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tabitha. Thank you for joining us today. Excited to see lots of people. I'm one of the student advisors in the Department of Integrated Studies and Education and the Faculty of Education, aka DICE. You might hear some acronyms today. That's one of them. So the department for the program. January will be my 3 years working with students in this program. And it's been an amazing time. Definitely looking forward to many more. My role as a student advisor, I work with students pretty much once they're accepted into the program up until they graduate. So helping them with anything that they need in terms of navigating McGill resources or questions about certain courses or things about their program. So I'm here for students once they're in the program, and I work with them all week, all the time. We've also got Helena here as well.
I can unmute myself. Hi, everyone. I'm Helena Silin. I graduated this past spring as part of the, as we fondly call it, inaugural cohort of the BA. So it's the program's going into its fifth year, something like that. And I was part of the first group to graduate, so I can speak to the experience of being a recent alum. And I had a good time in the program and worked with both Mitchell, Tabitha, and Sam, who will now introduce himself.
Good evening. I am Sam. I'm a current U3 student. I'll be graduating this summer. I'm very excited that you're all here to learn more about the program, and I'm excited to share so much more about my current experience, what to expect, and how you could learn so much in such a really cool program.
Thank you. And you'll hear much more from Tabitha, Helena, and Sam throughout the presentation. Something we like to do here in the program at McGill, and you might be familiar with it, is land acknowledgement. Now, I'll be saying it, but I want to speak a little bit more about what this means and how we're approaching decolonization and indigenization within the BA education program. So McGill University is on land which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst Indigenous peoples, including the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe nations. We acknowledge and thank the diverse Indigenous peoples whose presence marks this territory on which peoples of the world now gather. Now, depending on where you're coming from in the world, you might be familiar or not with these territory acknowledgements, which look to honor and recognize the ancestral and oftentimes unceded lands of the Indigenous peoples that we work and study and live our lives on. For us at McGill and in the Faculty of Education and in the BA education program, we also try to indigenize our education and our processes much more than with an acknowledgement. So for instance, a required course in the program is Indigenous education. There are many other courses that will oftentimes integrate Indigenous worldviews and perspectives and knowledge systems into what you're learning. Many students, even for their capstone projects that we'll talk about, look at Indigenous topics either explicitly or use it as a certain theoretical framework to look at their work. And so decolonizing our practices as instructors, as students, looking at Indigenous ways of knowing and doing and looking at how that intersects with education is really important to us at the university, in the faculty, and in this program. So I make this land acknowledgement, but I also use it to talk more about how we're acknowledging more than just the land we're on, but the way in which our lives can really benefit from integrating a more intentional Indigenous and sometimes two-eyed, bring in the Western perspective as well, perspective. So if that's something that especially excites you about having that kind of experience in your education, then definitely the BA education is the place for that.
We would like to get a sense of who's here today. So if you would humor me, there's going to be a poll up on your screen in a second here. Just looking to see where you are located in the world, and then also a little bit about your background in terms of your application status, whether you're still thinking about applying, you've already applied, maybe you're a current student. So just take a minute there and go ahead and answer the question right on your both questions actually right on your screen there. And I'll give you just a minute to fill that out. Okay, perfect. Okay, you're all very fast. Everyone has answered. Perfect. Okay, so nice to see here. We've got a nice mix of students. We've got, honestly, almost a split divide in thirds here of students from Quebec, from Canada, but outside of Quebec, and then outside of Canada. So you might be in the US or somewhere else internationally. So that's great to see. And I think that also really shows also the diversity in the program as well. You have lots of students in your classes who are from different parts of the world, but also some that are also local here to Montreal and to the wider province as well. And then the status, quite a mix as well. So some students who've already applied, some current students here at McGill, and some who are still undecided, which I think is great to see. Hopefully you can walk away today with a better understanding of the program and can make an informed decision for yourself today. So thank you very much for doing that. I realize you can see. There you go. You can see the results. Okay. Okay, perfect. If you have questions, if it's something that we're talking about, if we're talking about a specific aspect of the program and you have a question as we're going about that, feel free to use the question and answer section for the hosts, right at that moment if we're talking about that specific subject. If we're talking about something that's not covered, just wait, we might get to it. And we'll be hanging around for a few minutes after the presentation's over. So if we didn't get to your pressing question, you'll have time to ask individually as well at the end. So please feel free to do that. Okay, perfect. Okay, so in terms of McGill itself, so we are looking at a university that's committed to offering students a learning experience unlike any other. It's an international one. It's one with programs such as the BA Education. We're looking to develop foster success and self-development. And there's a lot of research done at the university. And even as undergraduate students, some of our students choose to take part in some of the various research labs going around here in the department, in the faculty, and sometimes even outside of the faculty. So they definitely work hard to, if that's something they're interested in, there's definitely lots of opportunities to get involved in those type of ventures on campus related to research. 2024, #1 in Canada among research universities. And what I love about Montreal and McGill, the #1 student city in North America. It's very easy to get around. There's always something to do. There's lots of different cultural experiences. So someone who, like myself, is newer to Montreal the past 4 or 5 years, really enjoyed living here and going to school as well. We've got a very international campus, innovative academics, leading research, and that opportunity for self-development. And self-development, I would say, especially in this program, and we'll get to that in a minute. Perfect. Okay, so in terms of, we've got McGill, and then of course we have McGill Education, the Faculty of Education. We empower students in the BA Education to explore diverse career paths. You'll see near the end, we're going to show you all the things that our students are interested in, and you're going to say, wow, this is quite a diversity of career paths and possible graduate studies. And that's true throughout the program. We promote justice-driven learning experiences and a supportive, globally engaged academic community. And you'll see that even in your first year in the program, all of your instructors are pursuing different projects around Montreal or internationally, really engaged in academics locally and around the world. From the Times Higher Education, love some stats here. McGill Faculty of Education, first in Quebec, third in Canada, and top 5% in the world. So, that's our faculty education programs. We're advancing human development. We're committed to inclusion and belonging and prioritizing community. And I think that's true. There's really a good sense of community here, of self-development. And by the end of your program, you should walk away feeling that you've really learned a lot. You've not only learned a lot, but you've also brought a lot. We really encourage students to bring their own ideas and experiences to the program and to their classes. And that's something our instructors in the education components of your program really try to foster as well.
On top of what Tabitha has said just about McGill and McGill Education, and we said we love our stats, this is a very interesting statistic that came out from the government of Quebec recently that found that of all university post-secondary graduates that were employed in a field related to their degree, those with a bachelor's degree in education were the ones most likely to be working in a job that was closely related to their field. So a lot of this obviously is also based on bachelor's of education and teacher certifications, but it also speaks to the BA education because something that I know our department and our faculty really prides itself on is being career-minded and having that mix of theoretical and practical elements. So as you'll see, the BA education has an internship component. We have a dedicated career advisor. So we are preparing you to think like an educator, but also to think about where you can go in the world after this degree and the real career suitability of it and how it can lead to a job. So we of course understand 2025, a lot of people are choosing university direction based on what will happen after the program, although there's lots of great things that happen during your time here. And so just to say that a degree in education, not only does it go a lot of places, but it also really sets you up to actually be doing something in that field that you've chosen to go into. And so I think that really speaks well to the environment that we try to set up and the opportunities that students are afforded in education. So that's about McGill and McGill Education. Now let's take you down to talk about why we're here today, the BA Education program. So officially the degree is BA Education, a Bachelor of Arts in Education, and the major is Education in Global Context. There's only one major that goes along with this degree, so they're kind of are in it together. As Helena said, it is a new-ish program. I think soon I'm going to have to drop even the ish and the new, and it'll just be a well-established program. But for now, especially when comparing across the university, it's definitely on the newer side, and it would be our 5th cohort that you hopefully would be a part of in fall 2026. It is 90 credits, so compared to if you're looking at the Bachelor of Education, which is 120 credits, it is 90 credits, which means depending on the credits you come in with, it could be 3 to 4 years. That gets into very technical student record specific content that we won't get into here, but just to know it's akin to other Bachelor of Arts programs at the university in that it's 90 credits or 120 credits if you don't have advanced standing from, for instance, SAGEP or IB or AP. The reason this program came about is that we had the Bachelor of Education for a long time that obviously certified students and graduates to work as a teacher in schools. And because it's a professional program, all the coursework really needs to focus on that and be very specific to that profession about what is needed. But we noticed that some students, like myself, would graduate from that program and not necessarily want to go into elementary or secondary teaching and want to pursue other fields. But it became kind of, you had to do that despite everything that you've learned that has set you up for teaching. And so what the faculty wanted to do was really make sure that there was a program designed for those who didn't want to be in the classroom and wanted to be an educator in other spaces, or look at educational environments in nonprofits and higher education and organizational contexts. And so it pairs really well with the Bachelor of Education in that way, and still is working hard to develop educators. And we think these two degrees together for the department are a wonderful pairing. It has a few things that some of the other programs don't have that we'll get into. But really, it is about looking then at education in all contexts. You can look at it certainly in the school-based settings. We have many students that are, for example, interested in schools, just not being that teacher in the front of the class. And there's lots of courses and opportunities to look at curriculum development and school administration, policy development in schools, all those other angles. We also have students that are interested in community contexts around education, or government context, or those who just want to take this degree and look at other fields from an educator's perspective. So really about expanding the field of education that has already been expanding, and now we just have 2 degrees that together encompass the entire field of education, both inside the school and outside the school teaching context. So what makes the BA Education in particular very unique, both as a program within the faculty, across the university, and nationally and internationally? There are a few things. So first is you have a dedicated support team. So you have Tabitha here, who said on record that she'll be around for many years, and that is your advisor. Something you may not have in other programs is a dedicated advisor. What I mean by that is, depending on when you go for an appointment, it could be a different person. Tabitha, by the end of your degree, knows you very well, knows your interest, knows your passion. So when you go to see advising with Tabitha, not only is it because, I'll say on record, Tabitha is a wonderful person and very good at her job, but also the fact that this is someone who you have gone to over the years and talked about your coursework and what it's leading to. This is what we call like a holistic approach to advising. Someone who more just tells you what course to register for and what form you need to complete. Someone who can really help you to become that fully developed individual. And to go back to what Tabitha was talking about, self-development, we make sure that not just the courses you take, but the advising that you get also really supports that. In the same way, you're supported by a dedicated education career advisor. This is funded through the Education Undergraduate Society, and Education has a dedicated career advisor. So someone who, again, knows the field really well, knows the program really well, is not just a generalist, but is someone dedicated to undergraduate students in the Faculty of Education. We also have an internship administrator just for this program. So there is one, as we'll get to, integrated internship component in the program, and you have a full-time staff member dedicated to making sure that you are being connected with opportunities and people and organizations that are of interest to you for that internship, so that you're not on your own. You can see you're very well supported. We also have an education wellness advisor through the Wellness Hub with student services, and they are particular to education. So a lot of dedicated support both in the Faculty of Education and then specifically for this program. And I've heard from students who maybe have transferred or have friends, and they have said that when they come into the Faculty of Education, especially in the BA Education, there's a level of support and familiarity, honestly, that is hard to come by in some other areas. What also makes our our program unique are the classes. So you have the large lectures, you have small seminars, you have hands-on, courses, you have courses that include offsite activities. We have one next year that'll be for the first time in the science lab, looking at science education in public education contexts like outreach and museum education and things like that. So these are really a mix. And the people who teach them, we have faculty. So you have some individuals here who are teaching some of our courses either now or in the future. And the courses really are very deliberately put together. So the nice thing about this being a smaller program and a newer program is that when we put together our courses and when we schedule them, Tabitha and I can really think about the student experience when we do that. So we're thinking about how is your term going to be a mix of those large lectures and those smaller courses. And we heard from students, I think maybe the ones that are here today, that it's nice to have that diversity. We're thinking about what options do you have year to year? Who's teaching these courses so that you have a mix both within your term across the year, that those who maybe you took a course with initially you can see later on. So this is really what we call almost like a curated program. So we're really, really intentional about the classes and courses that are available to you and how they are creating that overall student experience for you.
Perfect. If that didn't get you excited, let's talk more about what the BA education has that's unique. We have some really great foundational courses that you take throughout the program, a lot of them in your first year. Mitchell mentioned Indigenous education, communication, educational psychology. We have a really great leadership class that's a requirement for students in the program, program design. Outside of these foundational courses that everyone in your program takes, you also have the ability to do 4 complementary courses. These are sort of special topics kind of courses. Next year we're offering a peace education course. So what does peace look like in relation to education, around Canada and globally? We have classes on eco-justice and sustainability in education. We have classes in health and well-being, and these all change every year. So there's new topics each year. We try to go off of student interest, and it's really going to be up to you by the time you finish your degree to choose 4 of these that are really of interest to you. So maybe 1 or 2 a year, for example. We then have the option, not the option, everyone does 6 electives in the program, either inside the faculty if you want to take more education courses or outside the faculty. Maybe you're like, you know what, I'm loving my small class sizes here, but you know what, I really want to go do this really interesting sociology course in a class of 700. And that's great. So you have the opportunity to kind of tailor those electives to specific topics you like, specific types of classes you like. Maybe you want to go do, a math class that has a lab component. There's lots of options for you to take courses like that outside of your specific program requirements. You've also got the ability, and star here, okay, to study full or part-time. So certain conditions apply to that. Of course, if you're an international student, if you have student loans and things like that, it's definitely something to consider. Come talk with me. I'll show you sort of all the considerations you might want to consider if you're considering going part-time, but it is a possibility in this program. We also have opportunities for summer courses as well. We try to offer a couple, and each summer we're trying to offer new ones and a couple more that are open to our students as well. So it's an opportunity for you to stay connected over the summer and take some of our courses if you'd like to. And you've got everyone taking electives, you've got everyone taking these foundational courses. On top of that, everyone also gets to choose one minor or 2. So you've got to complete a minor before the end of your program. And this is an opportunity for you to really focus on one particular avenue. Maybe it's going to be something that you want to relate to your career in your future. Maybe it's something that you just have a really deep interest in and you want to dive deeper in. It's completely up to you how you want to take it. We've got the choice of educational psychology, international development studies, entrepreneurship for non-management students. I'm not even going to say the management for non-management students. Management, environment, science, and there's a few music options. So we talk a lot about the diversity in this program. Here's an example when, I might minor in educational psychology and one of my peers might look at international development in their minor. So focusing on two very different things and still bringing educational components to their foundation of their degree, but can focus on something different for their minor. We do have the ability to add these easily. But some of them, such as the music minors, the entrepreneurship minors, and the management minors, all require an application. So you've got to be in the program, and for some of those, doing at least 2 terms of study before you can apply for those. So lots of little details, but still the options are there for you to pursue some of these opportunities as well. If you're bold and want to take on 2 minors, like Helena here, it's also a possibility for you to do. I always recommend students who take on 2 minors to meet with me. It means you've got no electives and you've really got to plan out your degree, but it's a really good opportunity for you to have 2 things on your transcript that are, really interesting and geared towards what you want to do, or again, is just of interest to you. So you can do a mix of these without problem. And it's great to hear from me. It's great to hear from Mitchell, but let's talk and hear a little bit from some of our former students, current students. So great to hear from you, Helena.
Hello, everyone. That was a lot of information, and I apologize. I will be giving you more information. Yeah, so I am a bit about me. I am Helena. Yes, I graduated from the program. Had a good time. I was just reflecting that all of these courses sound good and sound like a program that I would like to do, and then I realized I'd already done it. But I think it's a testament to how much it's grown and evolved even since I was in it and how much work people like Mitchell and Tabitha are putting in. There's new classes all the time. I really want to take peace education. Maybe I'll come back. Yeah, so I think one of the wonderful things about this program, as you maybe saw in the survey at the beginning, is that it brings together a lot of different people, and we've talked a lot about the diversity of paths you can take in it. And what drew me to it very much was that it is this interdisciplinary program as an arts undergrad. And what I really appreciate about it is that it, while being quite accessible, it's also built in a way that you can make it quite rigorous in that it's almost built like a master's program. That the opportunity to do kind of guided research as part of the program, the built-in internship and the preparation for that internship that's built into the program are pretty exceptional in an undergrad, as in addition to, I think, Tabitha and Mitchell have been very humble in saying how much the program kind of supports you, and that was a complete standout of my experience. Um, I kind of agree with what all the statistics at the front of this presentation were saying about education being very marketable and employable. I'd also say it's quite versatile and useful. Education at its heart is about communicating with other people and explaining ideas. And I've yet to find a career where you don't need to be able to clearly communicate information. And also, I think in kind of our current times, being able to understand how people learn and people listen is a very powerful skill. And I was very much drawn to the fact that the program was quite new when I joined in. It's a little bit less new now, but I think it still has a newness to it in that it's evolving and it's quite self-reflexive. I mean, I say it as though it's not guided by the people within it, but Mitchell and Tabitha and some of the other support team really take the time to speak to students and listen to feedback and keep growing the program. And there have been a lot of cases where students have said, I really want this, including some of the minors that are offered now came from students suggesting that they were added to the program. And then Mitchell and Tabitha's diligent hard work has led that to be, which we appreciate. They don't pay me. I just actually like them. What I love about the program is indeed this leadership, as well as The teachers and the faculty of education. One of the phenomenal things about the faculty of education is that all of the teachers in it have, or many of the teachers in it have teaching experience, which means that the professors can teach, which is actually not always guaranteed at university. So I find that you have a very positive class experience. Not only are they accommodating and thoughtful, but they also are good at communicating information and organizing courses in a way that makes sense. So you're just able to have a very like pleasant, thoughtful experience. Another thing I appreciate and that's been mentioned and I referenced by speaking to the internship, but it goes far beyond that, is thinking about practical application. While the program I think does make sure to think about theory, and I think that's an important part of any arts degree, um, you're also really taking the time to think about how to employ those, and it's not only in a classroom, though you can certainly talk about that if you're interested. It really does go into nonprofit, into corporate, into community work, kind of anything you could think of. I think a strong connection to the program can be drawn. Um, yeah, the community is, speaking of community, the community is great. The courses are strong. There's some other things that are built into the program that are quite elegant, like building a semester in that's the courses are designed so that you can take it on exchange. Hence the global in the name. The global in the name it has a lot of facets to it, has a lot of meaning, but I think that exchange semester, which I believe Samuel did, is or at least some of your classmates have done, is an excellent experience. And then yeah, I maybe some of you are already at McGill, so you don't need me to tell you about what makes McGill a interesting school to be at. But it's giant. It's like many students. I hear something between 15 and 40,000, depending on who's counting. But there's a lot of people here and a lot of people who are doing interesting things. And so being a part of that is amazing and can lead to a lot of opportunities if you're thoughtful. And I think having a story to tell about coming from education and coming from this program allows you to kind of enter any space because we're in a school. And so you can always come in with, well, I'm interested in education and this is a classroom. And it allows you kind of a foot in the door in a lot of spaces within the university as well as beyond. Yeah, and I mentioned a little bit that the program kind of has, this idea of being part-time, which came from students' requests. And yeah, the program is quite flexible to your ability to kind of juggle and explore other extracurricular experiences or juggle commitments that you have that you need to uphold. It's kind of, may I say, like built for real people and not just to check boxes. And I think something that's been really meaningful to me was the ability to like work part-time during the program. A lot of students have done this, and that depending on what work you're doing, like I worked in a school and worked with community organizations, volunteered, and that was able to really complement my learning as well. And I recommend doing that if that's something you're interested in. I think you can go to the next slide, Tabitha. Yammered on. Dun, dun. There you go. Yeah, so I can speak. Actually, Sam, do you have anything you want to add to that? That was sort of a general overview before I speak to myself, maybe.
No, you did great. And something I do want to add is more emphasis on the community. As you said, like McGill is a massive university. Its campus is enormous. But what's something incredible about the Faculty of Education is that it's one of the smaller faculties, but not it's not always that, oh, the bigger the better. Like it's also a lot of quality over quantity within the faculty. And for my time there, been there for 3 years, I've managed to meet and become friends with so many people, and it's different from other faculties. I'll talk about it later, but I'm minoring in management. The management faculty is enormous, but whenever I'm in the Faculty of Education, I feel more at home. The people are so approachable, and everyone's there because they kind of want to be there.
Yeah.
So I can't speak for other faculties, but also it's the size that really pulled me to this program as well. That it wasn't overly huge, where some arts faculties have just within them like 10,000 students, and then here we have a smaller faculty, but also the cohort in general. They're not that big, so you can get close with the people who are in your cohort above or below. It's a great community within the faculty.
Yeah, and I'll just echo that in that like Sam's being quite humble. I think like a lot of teachers know his name. Like I graduated, decent number of them like know me by name, and that's one strategic from like a letter of references, kind of cold, harsh reality of the world point of view, but also from a human perspective, I think, and from kind of a joy of learning angle. There's a lot of opportunities for mentorship if you kind of seek it with curiosity in the faculty that people um, a lot of the professors kind of have that generosity and because of the size and of the faculty and sometimes the size of the classes and also their kind of conversational style, you have really an opportunity to build that relationship that, I can speak to friends in arts and that is much harder to come by. Yeah, so I can talk about me now. Yeah, so I'm an alumni, yay. Graduating is fun, being in school is fun. Thank you all for your support. I can speak a lot about what I did in university. It was a pretty awesome time. And I will also speak a bit to what I'm doing now. But I think if you really have deep questions about my journey, you're welcome to like reach out to me. I have a McGill email figured out. If you, yeah, stay after if you need. As a student, I have a few identities, I suppose. As Tabitha mentioned, I double minored in international development and educational psychology. Um, I was interested in double minoring just because I wanted kind of some things to speak to on my to help explain the program as part of my CV. It was a great experience. It is also something that you want to do with spreadsheet in hand, because organizing the classes to work out is Tabitha, I'd come to her once a semester and go, Tabitha, please, okay, we need to check everything. But she was always super helpful, and I really had not a hiccup at any point. Um, but you can also just kind of take a mix of classes and have a really meaningful experience that way. So I'm not out here to say everyone needs to double minor or else you won't have a meaningful experience. It's not that at all. It's really kind of, I would say, guided by your own interest and goals. Um, I'm also an international student. I'm from the United States. So I am not a lawyer, but I can kind of speak a little bit to that international experience. I'd say that overall, I found the International Student Center at McGill supportive if you are strategic and able to accommodate questions and concerns that you have. Um, Also, as a student, I was somewhat involved. I was on student government for 3 years. I actually held a position that Mitchell once held when he was a student here in the great passing on of kind of committing to McGill. And in that, I want to say I found my experience on student government, which I was also briefly on with Sam, super meaningful. And I feel like I always get up on a soapbox as a recent alum and as a student and really tell students to be involved. I feel like you hear this all the time. But I do sincerely believe that it is a huge part of what helps your learning in university and makes your experience meaningful. The programs are fantastic and they're very aided by you kind of exploring questions in your own work, be that work on campus or off and volunteer or paid. Some other places you can find that are things like the micro experiences in a program McGill offers for short little internships, the internships that are built into the program, the other internships that you can find through the network in the program, internships offered through other people at McGill, the clubs, there's like 300 clubs at McGill, the larger student association for the entire university. You may have heard about them, you may know them if you're already a student. Um, has everything you can think of. You can make your own thing, and it's a wonderful place to kind of explore leadership, explore a community that you care about. And then I think, as was briefly mentioned as well, there can be opportunities for research, kind of formally or informally, or lab work, depending on who you are and what you're doing and who you're able to meet. And that's definitely something that interests some students, especially if they're kind of really in a master's track. Uh, yes, I worked a bit during my degree. I did my internship in the Faculty of Medicine at McGill, working with their Office of Social Accountability. I was very interested in medicine because it was kind of this complex system in the way that education was, and I was interested in the similarities and difference between those systems. Um, I also worked at a school because I was interested in kind of understanding that educational perspective. I really came into the program with an interest in educational policy and reform. Um, Obviously, that might connect with you or might not, but nonetheless, you'll like find your place. Right now, speaking of the employability of the program, I managed to get a job right out of graduating. In fact, I managed to get three. I cannot necessarily recommend working three part-time jobs, but it is a lot of fun. So I actually work for McGill right now, credit to the connections from the program. I work a bit in campus culture and student life and learning. I also continue my job kind of working as a teacher and educator. I teach math and history, particularly for students with like special needs, ADHD kind of stuff. Um, and I also am like doing kind of a research project with like a family friend. So that is kind of just a thing that happened, but is cool and interesting and explorative. As I already mentioned, like the network from the program is quite useful. I think if you are intentional about it, it's very meaningful. I think Sam will probably also speak to that. And I just want to say that, like, here I am living and breathing in the flesh, telling you all these great things, and I'm not the only person who succeeded. They didn't just cherry pick me. All of my classmates are doing super well. People are exploring a lot of different things. People are in masters in Europe, and someone's in Sweden, and people are talking about law school, and like there's all sorts of interesting things going on. People are working full time. They like got jobs right out of uni. I think we're largely having a great time, and I feel very proud of my classmates. And I also we're all staying in touch, or a lot of us are staying in touch, and so that is also kind of a beautiful network to come out of the program. I will let Sam speak now, and you can all ask me questions now or later.
I'll also add, Helena talks about being humble, but one of the photos, as you'll see here, is that Helena was also the valedictorian of the Faculty of Education last year, which is selected among all undergraduate students from all programs. So that's also something that is a great accomplishment. The students in our program do very well for themselves. And Helena was the first ever applicant as well to the program. So to go from first ever applicant to valedictorian is quite a journey. And a lot of our students are doing really great things locally and internationally. Sam, take it
I'm
away.
blushing, Mitchell.
Yeah, so a little about like what is it like being a current student? Something that I will have to really put a big emphasis on is the networking. A lot of my current experiences in the BA would not be possible without reaching out to certain people, especially in fields that I'm interested in. A great example is the first point on the slide. I was a research assistant for the educational technology lab of how ChatGPT impacts education and how AI can be used to further improve education and all its downfalls and bad things. But this all started because I had an interest, and this program allowed me to really push the boundaries of how interested can one be. And Mitchell could tell you about how interested I am in this subject. Um, but it's something that I always tell new students that if you're interested in something, this program allows you to really walk down that road, whether it's policy, community, tech, whatever it could be. Um, Last semester, I had the opportunity doing the winter internship at Collab Education. It's an ed tech company based in Toronto. I was basically collaborative community builder. I designed outreach programs and spearheaded their AI initiative. They're currently a very popular company to internship for within the BA students. They keep expanding, they keep growing. And similar to Helena, I didn't have the privilege of being on the council for 3 years, but I did my 1 year with them. It was a lot of fun. I met some incredible people. My university career got progressively more busy, so I had to let go of the council. But it's a great experience. I highly recommend anyone to really join it. It gives you perspective that is so different than being just a student, seeing what how involved students can get and really how important the community is for the Faculty of Education. And this is not just the end of my interests and what I would like to do. I have applied for a master's in educational technologies. I still wanna, I don't have an answer just yet, but I'm I hope I hope I get in. But it's an interest that I keep like pushing after. I keep trying to see what more I could do. And if it wasn't for the BA, it's all its connections, all its mentorship, um, I don't know if I could be where I am now. I don't I couldn't recommend this like program more, not because I'm a student, no one's paying me. It's a genuine response, genuine interest when it comes to everything that it gives you, all the people you meet, all the classes you take. It's really like a university experience. It's not just I'm going to university. Like you really get to experience so much. I briefly mentioned before that I'm also minoring in management. The management faculty requires 1 year of full, um, basically, you have to complete one full year before applying to their faculty. And and then I would say it's a very unique minor because it gives you a whole different perspective with a whole different group of people. And I really, really like it. I chose it because I want to know how organizations worked, what it meant to, like, what is business, what is management. And I'm really happy I was able to explore that. But it's also not like once you pick something, it's not said and done. I changed my minor 3 times. I went from educational psychology, international development, and then I chose management. So the options are open. Albeit you know, we have to, if you make a change as early as possible, it can be too deep in a minor, then expect the change. That will cause some difficulties. Tabitha can only help so much. But yeah, I don't have anything else to say about my current experience, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
I realize I should probably also speak a little bit to my experience in my minors as well, if we have a moment, which is, do we have a moment? Okay. Yeah, so I did international development and educational psychology. You'll notice that there are other minors in the program. They weren't around when I was in it. So, I'm excited to hear more about students who are majoring in like the science path, in environment and some of the other programs, and as well as maybe future forthcoming ones. We'll see. And yeah, so I did international development. Some of you may be very familiar with that, or it might be kind of a new concept to you. It's a lot about kind of studying the system of international aid, as well as international politics. You can take it in a lot of directions. It's a very broad and interdisciplinary program as well. It can have more of a history angle, sociology, even like sustainability and agriculture and stuff there as well. You can also kind of take it into a specific issue like health or food security or even things like geography and urban planning. It's quite open. Uh, I had a really good experience there. I think, like Sam mentioned, it is a very different group of students than those in the Faculty of Education, different again from those in management, but they're interesting people to meet. You can often as well kind of get connected with them in their student organization, some of their clubs and activities as well. And professors there can be interesting connections also. Uh, I had a very good experience. I had some courses that I found really meaningful and I think it's interesting to the program as one of the minors because it looks really at even the bigger picture that education exists in. And that was part of why I chose it, is because it looked at this really big picture. And then there was kind of the program, if you will, it was like part of a sandwich. And then the program itself was like the filling. And then for me, there was also this kind of individual aspect of like the individual learner, individual experience, which is why I double minored and focused in the educational psychology, because I was interested as well in like the psychology of an individual learner and child development, and those things are explored there. So if you have that psychology interest, it can be explored there or also from the science for non-science students or whatever that new minor is called. I think it's called that. And that also allows pursuit of psychology if that interests you. It's definitely and that or neuroscience definitely pair well with education. But I find that everything pairs well with education, so any interest can be explored. And I think also just to say generally, like what's so wonderful about studying education is you're really learning about learning, and to know how to learn is useful in every discipline. So more program hype, and also I found my minors very relevant. And I think something that's nice about the program is that the minors are very thoughtfully chosen in that they complement the coursework and themes of the program. So I'll rest my case for now.
Thank you, Sam. We talked, we wanted you to especially hear about the student and now alumni experience, considering you can read a lot online, but you can't really hear from the real life experiences of those who have done and are doing the program. And so they'll also be around to answer any questions. And as you've kind of also seen just from the banter that we've had in the session, we do all get to know each other quite well. And I know Sam and Helena in particular, like as students and future professionals and now current professionals. And even, I mean, Sam's talking about wanting to go into the masters. I was one of his referees very happily. And I can tell you when I write those letters, I am not writing something generic. I can speak very well to our students as learners and what they're doing in and out of the classroom. So I say this more to say, if you are someone who wants your university experience to be, you want to come in, you want to be that kind of faceless name or nameless face in the crowd, then you're going to your large lectures and you just want to keep your head down and get through it. Honestly, I would say maybe the BA education isn't for you. But if you want, like Sam and Helen have talked about, to come in, to be part of a community, to get to know people as peers, to get to know people as friends, to have a really great relationship with your instructor where they understand you as a student, as a learner, as a future professional, and that they can support your development over those years, then I think the BA education program is for you. And I think that's what really makes it unique in that standpoint. And they've said already that, they're not being paid to be here. This is students and now an alumni, I always have to refer to Helena as an alumna, that are here because they just want to talk about this wonderful
Student
program.
of life.
That's right. Lifelong learner. So a few more things about the program is we've already talked about this in context, but something that really makes it unique now is the internship. So you heard about Helena and Sam's internships. So to explain, this is a integrated internship. So what we mean by that is it is a required internship that happens in your second year. It could be winter or summer, or actually very recently, we're going to expand it to fall as well. See, so many changes. And this is where you get to have that hands-on experience and where you connect your coursework in the first year and second year to the internship, where you get to then bring it into your third year as well. It is an internship that you find, so there's not, a small pool of projects or organizations you can work with. Literally, the world is your oyster, and we have people who do it locally, who do it across Canada, internationally, remotely. And like I said before, we have a staff member who helps connect you with organizations, who presents you with opportunities that ultimately you secure. Why I really like this model is that as opposed to a program where either an internship is optional or where it's more of a placement situation, is you develop career skills as part of this as well. You're going to have experience when you graduate about cold calling organizations, about doing interviews, about writing cover letters, about even deciding what it is you want to do and what you want to apply for. All these things that are directly related to career resiliency, development, and self-management, you will get as part of this program. And you're even taking courses beforehand and after that speak to that. So for instance, before your internship, there is a seminar where we talk about developing career management skills as it relates to your internship. And understanding yourself better through that. So if you are, again, someone who really wants to be very reflexive and get to know yourself better through your studies and understand yourself and your identity more as a learner, as a professional, as a person, as an educator, then this is really a great program for that. All that then leads to your third year where you have a capstone research project. Again, very unique for an undergraduate program that everyone does a research project. This isn't something just honor students do. It's not just something that students who can find a supervisor and do an independent project can do. Everybody is supported with an instructor who becomes their supervisor to do a research project by the end, and the topic is totally of your choosing as long as it's related to education and global context. And you have an entire year to write this paper supported by 2 different classes. For the first time in our faculty, undergraduate students, because of this, have been able to publish in the McGill Library repository. So we have students from last year who were able to actually publish their research projects. And then from there, even if you want to submit it to journals, you can. So there's a really unique opportunity that you are given the support and integration to have this project and opportunity that some students have to sometimes like fight tooth or nail or find people or scramble for. Here, everybody gets that opportunity and you make of it what you will. But it's not something that has, like we say, like a competitive entry. Here, it's very democratic and it's what you make of it. So some students really want to go above and beyond with their capstone research project. They want it to be able to lead to, for instance, graduate work. Some students are just, still developing their research skills. There's something for everything and a lot of different unique ways that you can take it. And in terms of internships, you've heard from Sam and Helena what they did as part of their internships. Here's just a broad overview of some of the internships that have happened so far in the years that students have already been doing internships. We had a student, a peer of Sam's in his cohort that worked in diplomacy and foreign affairs, worked for the U.S. consulate. We've had students work for UNESCO. We've had students work for local nonprofits working with food security. We have had students working in summer camps focused on literacy for both youth and adults. It goes on. It's incredible to me the tacit intersections that students find with education and where they are taking this, both in terms of the discipline, the field, the literal region that it takes them to. We had a student go to Peru. We had a student work in a nonprofit in Brooklyn. So really amazing things that are happening across the spectrum. And what's great is as they do these internships, it almost becomes really an example of where you can go in your career. So something that's really supported, but also very much self-defined by students.
Some other aspects of the program that are unique, and it's very painful for me to talk about exchange. I just met with a ton of BA students this week who are off to Australia, Sweden, Italy for the winter. So, I'm happy to support them. It's something that many of our students are interested in doing, but it is painful for me sitting here in snowy Montreal. Montreal's great weather too, I will say, yes. But we've basically created 2 different exchange terms that are possible, fall or winter in your second year. And this really came out of students in this program saying, many of us want to go on exchange, we'd like to go in certain terms, and we've made it so that the courses work with that. Not everyone wants to go on exchange, but we've at least made it possible if that's something that you're interested in pursuing. Some students also are interested in doing their internship following their exchange. Maybe they're already abroad and they're like, oh, I love being in this part of the world and I'd really like to organize my internship to be somewhere here. It's something that they can explore. They'd have to do a lot of research in terms of we put if legally permitted, but figuring out your visas and things like that. And that's far away. Keep in mind, this is not until your second year, but it's something that's possible. So there's different ways to sort of, if you want to get an international experience, you absolutely can through an exchange or through your internship. So it's up to you if you want to take those opportunities, or many students stay in Montreal and take advantage of the amazing organizations and opportunities that exist here in the city. Going on exchange obviously requires an application. I run intro sessions on exchange, so happy to help you with the process of doing that. If it's something you're interested, even you're like, Tabitha, I know for sure I'm only in my first year, but I want to go, you can meet with me anytime to discuss sort of what you're interested in doing and what that's going to look like specific to you. Something that's also great about the program is we do run exclusive BA education events. So there's opportunities for you to come together with the BA education community, students in their very first year, students in their graduating year, alumni. We have various opportunities to network and connect and build community with students who are in the program or with potential internship hosts. Some of the examples there We've got a community speaker series, so people who work in the field of education in some way coming to McGill to talk about their experiences, and the BA students can and see what opportunities for exist for them in that field, in that space, specific to that person's profession. We also offer the Internship Expo every fall, which is a big all-day event that our wonderful internship administrator puts on. And it's a really great opportunity to hear from students who are in year 3 and their hosts about the internship that they've just had. If you're a U1 or U2 student, we have speed networking opportunities. So literally bringing in hosts, having a small space, and you get to kind of mini interview and talk about this organization and your interests. And some people have walked away from that and actually gotten internships, that year or the following year. Or if you don't get an internship, you just say, well, that was a great opportunity to talk to 8 different people and learn about some of the ways in which they see our program fitting into what they do, which is in very different spaces. So it's a really great opportunity. So I recommend coming and attending if you decide to choose this program. We also offer drop-in feedback sessions, surveys. We just really want to make it so that you can come and speak with the program staff to talk about some ideas that you have about the program, maybe something that you'd like to see. We're happy to connect with students and take in any suggestions and thoughts and ideas that you have. Helena mentioned that some of the minors, she hadn't seen before, and that's something that her first cohort worked with us directly on and gave some suggestions for. So always happy to listen to those. We also have a brand new Legacy Links. This is an inter-cohort session. This was named, branded by Mitchell, so I'd love for him to talk a little bit more about that. He's had a few of them, but it's kind of another great opportunity to see sort of the cohorts and community come together.
Yes, happy. And actually, the student and alumna here today also took part in this. So this is recognizing that although we're not in a teacher education program, many students are interested in being part of instruction, whether that's facilitating workshops or small classes. And you heard from Helena, still very much involved in instruction. So this is that. It's a program where upper year students in the 3rd year and recent alumni can come back to the 2nd year course that I mentioned, which is the pre-internship research and professional seminar, and then develop and facilitate workshops as part of that class. So Helena and a fellow graduate, Laura, came last week to the class to talk about how to define the BA education program, both for yourself and for potential careers, and looking at an identity as an alumnus of this program. And then Sam came to talk to the class, as you maybe can guess, about AI in education and in internships. And so it's an opportunity that we've developed as part of this program. It's still going to be in the future, by application, that when you're in your 3rd year or even after you've graduated, you can still take part and get that experience of developing and facilitating a workshop, and then it can go on your student experience record as well. And again, be something else that you can mention in a career job interview, in a graduate school application, something like that. So really looking at ways, as you can see, that you get more out of this program than just coming to the classes itself, but it offers a lot of initiatives and community. And also we love this idea because it allows there to be that kind of giving back and generativity within the community. As you've seen here today, we like to offer, and really making sure that once you move up in the program or graduate, you're still very much being connected, and we're making that network, as we've talked about at length already.
Okay, so one important caveat being that, we talk about education. We're in the Faculty of Education. You're taking a lot of important courses that focus on education, but this is a unique degree, the Bachelor of Arts in Education, but it does not certify graduates to teach in elementary or secondary schools. So you'll not be a qualified teacher when you finish this program. It's really designed for people who want to still work in education, but in different spaces. Mitchell also mentioned, we have students who say, I don't want to be a teacher, but I want to work for this organization where they go and run workshops in schools and teach students how to eat healthily. And there's an organization that does that. So there's still opportunities to be in school settings or working with school-age children in literacy centers and things like that. But just that important caveat, it's not a teacher education program. I'm not going to read all these to you. You can just feast your eyes. We've got a wide range of potential careers grouped into different categories. We've got community engagement and social impact, education, policy and public service, educational technology and design, higher education and student services, global development and international education, research program evaluation, and consulting. So these are all things that many of our students are interested in and pursued for their internship, for their capstone research project, and are now thinking about for grad school or for their job when they're finished. So you can see there's a wide variety, and you'll be able to kind of pursue whichever one you enjoy. And some of these are also sometimes interrelated as well, which is really fun, and you can explore in your classes a little bit more. We've also got future academic pursuits. So we also have graduate degrees in education that students have explored. So popular ones I hear students talk about educational leadership, policy, technology, international social justice education. And then we also have degrees in related fields. So communication, global affairs. I know that we have some students applying to law, public health. I said I was going to read them all, and I feel like now I'm reading them all. But it just gets me excited because, we talk about the diversity, and I'm seeing all these things, and as I'm reading them, I'm thinking of students popping into my head that I know are pursuing these. So these are very real things that definitely our students are interested in and pursuing while they're here in the program.
And something I mentioned is, of course, we can list every career very technically, as long as it's not something you need certification for. Many jobs are available to you, but we did want to profile the ones that are most related to the BA education. And there's definitely a pathway, if not multiple pathways for you. And we are finding for this program, a lot of students are very interested in graduate studies. I say this for many reasons, but I think right now my count is I'm writing about 30 reference letters for our graduating students. But I also say that so that you know that you're coming into a program where there is a faculty member who is willing to write 30 reference letters, and I make them all very personalized and unique. And really, like I said, because I know the students well by the end of their studies, I know they are very strong applicants, and I'm very happy to speak to that. And I think they're really set up for success for graduate school.
Only because you're volunteering yourself. I will give my personal, I was hesitant to do it because I didn't want to throw you to the dogs, but I will give my personal attestation that Mitchell writes excellent reference letters, and the letter he wrote me did make me cry. So you got it good over here, and Sam can probably also attest to this.
I don't know, Sam saw the one that I wrote for him. I'll send it to you. Now, the next sections that we're talking about, we want to include, because we are talking to prospective students, if you're not a current student looking at the BA education. Very technically, no one here is working for the unit that oversees these items, but we do want to talk to them as they relate to the BA education. But I will say, if you have very specific questions about scholarships and awards as a new applicant, then I would direct them to the Scholarship and Student Aid Office or Service Point. We'll give contact info later. But I do want to say that as a BA education student, you are part of the Faculty of Education. You have access to entrance scholarships, which are based on academics. As a McGill student, there are merit-based awards and scholarships available to you. As being in the Faculty of Education, there's also internship funding opportunities. So if you are doing an unpaid or sometimes underpaid internship by choice or by circumstances, depending on whether you're Canadian or international, our good friends and colleagues in the Internships and Student Affairs Office have worked out different funding opportunities that should be available to you as well. And here's another stat that we like to highlight. We were named the #1 university in Canada for scholarships and bursaries. So again, I can't speak to the specifics, but I can say that as a BA education student, you are well supported in terms of your funding. Now, if you're saying, listen, the four of you have sold me on this already, how do I apply, in case you haven't applied yet, if you were some of the percents that didn't do that? There are deadlines that are coming up, not too soon, so you don't have to submit it tonight. But do take a look at the different dates. Again, if you have any questions about them, they're best sent to the Future Students Unit of Enrollment Services. But just take a look that if you are someone who said that you were international, you do have a deadline coming up sooner than, for instance, those in Quebec. I can say, I think on record, that offers go out sometimes on a rolling basis, depending on the strength of an applicant. So you don't have a better shot of applying earlier than later. It's nothing like that. But if you do apply early, there is the possibility that an offer will come early as well. So sometimes it is in your interest, if you're able to submit your application as early as possible, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with submitting it by the deadline or even on the deadline, but you might want to take a look at those. And with that, thank you for joining us. It's not over yet because we're very happy to stick around for questions, and we usually get a few more. I will say, before we get to questions and I give some information here, I'll read what's on the screen about Service Point is the student-facing unit in enrollment services that helps our current students and prospective students, those who are applying. If you contact them, or if you contact that email you see where you talk to someone within the Faculty of Education, that is the best person who should be answering questions about McGill. I'm on some of the groups, for prospective students and parents and things like that. They are great forums for, as you've seen here today, learning about what is the club like? What about meal plans? What do you recommend is a good place to go get dinner because we're going on a tour of McGill? I would say be very, very careful about asking questions of people who do not work at McGill, and for the unit that you are asking the question, if it is very something technical or specific. The reason is not because someone could give you the wrong information or they don't have it, because sometimes the information is very different depending on, well, are you an international student or a Quebec student? Are you applying to the Faculty of Arts or the Faculty of Education? Are you coming in with advanced credits or not? Is it undergraduate or graduate? And these are kind of the flow chart in your head that a staff member will know to make sure to give you the right answers. If you talk to someone and you just get that general advice, it's possible they'll give you an answer because that happened to be their experience about their particular context that actually isn't your context, and you might be led astray. And I got my start at the university by working in first year experience and orientation. So I have a lot of experience. So this is always like what I like to say with whatever audience I have, is just be very careful, because we also can't be held responsible if you happen to get the wrong information because you got it from someone not in an official capacity. And so I always say to you, it's really nice to have an email that came from someone at mcgill.ca versus saying, oh, I talked to someone else whose kid goes to McGill and this is what they did, so I assumed it was the same. It might vary. So when we do send around these slides, and you will get a copy of the slides and a link to the recording, you'll see we have the website with the BA Education overview if you want to learn more and see actually some of the specific courses that are part of the program in more detail. That is the email info.education@mcgill.ca if you want to talk to someone in the Faculty of Education specifically as a prospective student. There's going to be a link to the undergraduate admissions website that gives you all the information about how to apply, what you need to apply, the deadlines, things like that. If you want to get in touch with the Future Students Unit, there is a form you can fill out and you can call that number. But if something isn't urgent, I would recommend actually using that form. And with that, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Tabitha, Sam, and Helena, but stick around. And we now open the floor to questions. So if you want, you can pose it in the question and answer. If you're having trouble with that, and you want to put it in the chat to myself, for instance, happy to do that. And they're coming in already. So at this point, please, if you have the time, stick around to hear some people's questions. They might very well be your own. Okay, the first question is, how many courses did you take per year semester? I'm going to assume this is for students. I will just very quickly do the university response, which is that to be a full-time student, you need to be doing 12 or more credits, which generally works out to 4 courses or 4 to 5. And the program is based on doing 5 a semester to complete it in that 3-year, with some flexibility in case you don't do one course. Maybe you could do it in the summer. So that's the official response about what it means to be full-time. Okay, Sam, Helena, what's been your experience in terms of course load?
Yeah, so I'm an international student, and as an international student, you are obligated by the government to do full-time studies. So that does mean a minimum of 12 credits or 4 courses. I, for some reason, really had a bug under my butt to graduate on time, which I think it was kind of overrated, but I completed the program in the 3 years and did 5 courses every semester, except for one semester where I did 4 courses and I did a summer course. I'd say the summer courses at McGill are an excellent option and really not something to be wary of. It's nice to be able to take a lighter semester and pick up something in the summer, especially if you're staying in the city. And it's a nice option to be able to take 4. And I did it the semester that we had the big papers due as part of the research, because I was worried about kind of managing it on top of my workload. It ended up being fine, but it was nice to have that flexibility. And I'd say you are very much able to manage a full-time course load, and it also just depends kind of on how much time you want to spend doing other things. And that is the main area where it's affected.
Sam?
For me, it varied depending on busyness. I've done the least I've taken is 4 courses, and then I've always tried my best to take 5 because I also want to graduate on time. But it's the only program in the Faculty of Education that allows you to do it part-time. So if you really can't do 4 or 5, you could do 3, but you can't push your degree for more than a year. So you could do an extra year, but if you do anything more than that, it won't work out.
Excellent. We have lots of questions coming in, so stay tuned, everyone. I'll answer some of the very technical ones. Someone said if you came to this recording late, or the presentation late, will there be a recording? Yes, we will be sending out a recording and the slides to everybody who registered, and it'll also be available online. So tell your friends. Do you offer courses online in the spring term? Yeah, so courses in the spring, summer, so starting May, June, July, sometimes August, but mostly May, June, July being the summer term. Courses are more likely to be online than they are during the year. We have a few, or they're offered hybrid. Not all courses are online in the summer, but we usually do have a few options of online courses for sure. And sometimes we even have during the year. But I would say don't count on taking, a whole slew of online courses in the summer, but usually you can find 1 or 2, if not within our faculty, within some other ones. To the person who asked a very specific question about their application dossier and the grades you've received. I won't get into particular about reading out what you said, but I will say, the question is basically, can I apply to this program even if my marks are X, Y, Z? And I will say you definitely can. Everybody can apply to the program, and you'll see based on the other applicants and other considerations whether you get it in or not, but you certainly can always put in an application. What is the timeline for admissions and the rolling? So right now, they're just looking at certain applications that have come in. It's not to say, so I should be careful, it's not to say that because you send in your application early, you will receive a decision early one way or another. It's just that they are looking at applications as they come in, and some students may receive offers earlier than the deadline. That's my very careful wording around that. As far as the acceptance rate for the program, it does fluctuate year to year. It's not something that's made public, but it does depend on the amount of students that apply year to year. How many students are in the program? So it's definitely grown. In Helena's time, the graduating class was about 10, 12. Our current year two students, we have a cohort of about 50. And then our current first year cohort, between those who have started and will be starting in the winter and have transferred in, we're looking at just under 50 as well. And then Sam's third year cohort, again, the program obviously started small and is growing and growing, but it's looking to stabilize around that 50 number per year then. So around your cohort being there, which is nice because you have some classes all together and some where you're maybe split into two sections. Can you take whatever classes you want in the foundational year? Tabitha? Can unmute.
She
Great
was so
question.
excited.
Yeah, I was so excited. I'm moving my mouse around. So foundational year, great question. So we talked a little bit. I'm not going to get too much into it. You've got your 3 years of the specific program, and then you also have some students who come in without any background. Maybe they didn't do SAGE yet. Maybe they didn't do an IB degree. So they do this foundational 30 credit year beforehand. So their total degree is 4 years. In that foundational year, if that's what you were referring to, it's a very flexible 30 credits that you're going to finish. I'm very flexible myself in terms of, what students take. There isn't a specific list of courses that we require of you, and it is a really nice opportunity to take courses from a wide range of subjects across the university. We do offer the opportunity for students in the foundation year to be able to take some complementary courses in the program. So we've opened those up, and that'll be true for this coming year as well. And that's going to allow you to, yes, take some courses in other faculties or maybe within the faculty, but it's also going to allow you to take some program courses as well and meet some students in year 1, year 2, year 3, and really get a good sense of the program and even start building some of that community we've been talking about from your very first fall term. So you can still do a variety of courses, but I do recommend taking 1 or 2 courses here in the faculty in that foundation year, if that's what you were referring to. If you're talking about we said the foundational courses as well, which is a bit of a different term. Those are the foundational courses that are specific to the program. If you have a look at the program overview, when we send the slides here, you'll see in year 1, those are specific courses that everyone has to take in the first year of their program.
Right. This one's
Tabitha,
for
can I add to that? In asking the follow-up question, which is who should students speak to if they want help finding courses to take during the foundation year, as it can be kind of overwhelming. Should they speak to you or the student government or?
Yeah, it's a good question. We do host some events in early spring in June, and sad to say, I am here all summer. So, students are welcome to meet with me, especially new students. I really try to make time for, and as well, sometimes it takes time to learn, how do I register in Minerva, but it's really going to take just that first year to get used to things. But, more than welcome to suggest recommended courses. I will be sending a list of specific courses in the faculty that I'm going to recommend to students as well. But other than that, 100, 200 level courses, very flexible. But I'm more than happy to give some recommendations outside of, just generic courses that you're interested in as well.
Excellent. And I will say, when you see me looking down, that's because I'm writing a lot of these questions because they're excellent, and I'm thinking of how to integrate them into future presentations. And that's an example of continuous improvement in educational program design that you'll learn about. So not only are you answering great questions, but this is a real life example of how you're helping to develop our programming. For the students, I don't know if this is either of your cases. The question is, what would you say about the size of the university for a student coming from a small high school? So I imagine the students coming from a small high school. How do you feel like McGill compares, or what's that experience like going from a small high school to McGill and then the Faculty of Education, which I guess is...
Well, I came from a small high school. My graduating class was like 70 people. So I don't know how small we are talking, but I would consider mine pretty small. And at first it was a little overwhelming just because like to get across campus, sometimes like I need to walk for 10 minutes, but it's okay. It becomes something that we get used to. But that's why I really love this program with the cohort, because when I finally got in the program, so my cohort was like 30 people. I'm like, well, this is something that I'm used to, something that I actually enjoy. I could connect better with my peers, with the professors.
Mhm.
Yes, there's like an adjustment period, but it's nothing that we can't adjust to. Plus, being in the Faculty of Education, you can make friends pretty quickly and you can explore a campus together, which is a lot of fun.
And I actually also came from a small high school. Record your ethnographic data now. I also came from a high school with a graduating class of about 60 or 70, and then did CEGEP. Yes, I am an international student. Yes, that is an odd thing to do. It's okay. And I went to a CEGEP of about 2,000 students overall. For those who may be from abroad, CEGEP is like a kind of intermediary uh, after high school but pre-university school in Quebec. And I agree that similarly, like, look, any change of school is always an adjustment, whether you're coming from a big or small high school. And I think even if you're coming from a big high school, a university is still a very different experience. I will say that a wonderful thing about being at a big university is it's actually full of many, many, many small communities. And the kind of amazing thing is that there's a small community for everything. So it can feel very big and you can meet a lot of new people and traverse a lot of different spaces, but there's many places to find people who you connect with. And there's also a lot of first year mentorship programs and peer support programs and things for incoming students. So if you're kind of looking for advice on where to find some particular interest or kind of someone to help you figure out some of the intricacies of the program, whether you're like a first generation student, first a person in your family to go to university, or you're someone who's really familiar with the university space, those kind of programs and mentorship programs, even for students beyond just their first year, are available in the faculty if you kind of have those questions about integration.
I would also like to add that the faculty has this incredible thing. It's like a mentorship, like buddies program, where all new students are invited to apply for mentorship. So they're paired with uh, a senior student, so U2, U3, and I was able to mentor a student in the past. It was a lot of fun, and they were able to um, feel more welcomed in a university that has so many people. So that's also an option for when you apply or if you get in.
And I used to run the mentorship program, so I can tell you that we personally try to pair students with people who have similar interests. And at least at the time I was running it, it's run by some new students now. We're also asking questions around like identity and stuff. So if there was a particular kind of part of yourself that you wanted to try to find someone who kind of had a shared experience there, we were considering that as well. And I think the faculty always kind of has that broad, holistic approach. So I hope I think I would not say that anyone in the program has not felt welcomed. It pretty quickly. I think it's a pretty welcoming space, and education is certainly very friendly. So
Excellent. Great questions. They elicit a lot of responses and thoughts and experiences. So, I appreciate that. The question about why the department created the program, I touched about this earlier, so in case you did come late, I will say broadly, a reason for it is also because of the expertise amongst our faculty member, many who maybe are not necessarily looking at teacher education, looking at things like global education, about sustainability education. And so this program also allowed that faculty expertise in subjects in human development and learning that is including but also outside of the school context, and again about preparing our students and alumni for education as a broader field. What's really great about the Faculty of Education is that we really look at education very holistically and from multiple angles. The department that we're from, DICE, is one of three academic departments in the faculty. We also have departments that are looking at kinesiology and physical education, at educational psychology and counseling. And then we also have a unit that works along with DICE looking at First Nations and Inuit education as well. and has community programs there as well. So really, it was just about bringing in that program that adds to that holistic nature of education and looking at education as a very broad field. And education is happening everywhere you go, and there are many people that are educators or working in education, and the program is meant to develop you for that. There was a question talking about the program evolution, about whether the required courses have evolved over the years. You know, funny enough that they have not. I mean, something is if you are interested in higher education policy and practice, is it does take some time to revise required courses. But these have pretty much been mainstays, but there's been things like we said about part-time status, about the number of minors you can do, the complementary courses, the terms things are offered, those courses to give you more flexibility with an exchange or when you do your internship. Those have evolved, but certainly in the future, it's possible that the required courses will as well. But I think it's also something to be said that when the program was developed, there was a solid foundation, like we said, about courses that have really contributed greatly to students' degrees. And so right now, that's actually not something that either we've received a lot of feedback that needs changing or that we're looking to, but there's been certainly other things that have.
Mitchell, I will say that the required courses have kind of informally changed. I think especially sometimes when they've had consistent teachers who have taught them for a few years, I know that they've always been very interested in kind of continuous improvement of the courses. So maybe they haven't changed in a super drastic way, but I will say that I feel like they've just gotten kind of more refined and better and more aligned with the student feedback. So I think you're underselling yourself in terms of kind of the continued growth. I think it's a sign of like strength of the program that they've stayed constant, but also a sign that they have kind of tweaked.
Yeah. No, I like that. I in my head, I was thinking like, oh, well, the course codes and titles are still the same, and they're still the same ones offered. But you're right. Of course, they have evolved in the sense that they've gotten better, and they've also responded to student feedback. So yes, the course requirements have evolved in the sense of the curriculum and the needs that they're meeting. The courses are still the same from the beginning.
There's just there's just two questions here. I'll just note. There's a question about, is grade 12 English the only high school course being mandatory? And there's a question about grade 11 marks. Honestly, I just took a peek myself. I really do recommend getting those questions yourself on the undergrad admissions websites, as we're not the experts. But it's really, really, if you just go to entrance requirements, you filter by, are we talking grade 12 international? Are we talking grade 12 Ontario high school? It has very specific requirements based on the type of student that you are. So I recommend starting there as a point, and it'll filter down and it'll tell you exactly what you need in terms of specific courses, levels of courses. So I actually recommend, I don't usually stay the most up to date with specific admission stuff. So head on to that website and it does sort based on the type of student you are. Another really great question here. How long does an internship need to be? Do I still take the usual courses during internship programming? I'm going to talk for just a minute about some of the details, and then I'll let Helena and Sam talk a little bit, maybe just for a short period about what they ended up doing in terms of their hours. The internship itself is actually only a minimum of 150 hours, and that can be the minimum. Some students do 700 hours. It's really up to you, but the minimum is 150. Students do it sometimes full-time over July, August, or they do it part-time over the full summer. Maybe they can only commit, 10 hours a week or 5 hours a week. And it's something that they can negotiate with their host site. We also have, as Sam mentioned, the winternship. So we have the ability for students to go on the winter term or starting next year, the fall term. Usually that's for students who an amazing internship has come up and it's only available in the winter, or maybe they want to do something that's involved with schools. So school's not in session in July, so they really want to do their internship in the fall. So very flexible in terms of hours and the timeline. And in terms of courses, come and chat with me, see what your workload's like. If you can go part-time, maybe that's the best option for you. Or in some cases, some students just maybe reduce their course load while staying full-time. Helen and Sam, I don't know if you want to speak to that. I know Sam especially did the winter internship. How did you sort of negotiate those hours on your own?
Yeah. So I'll be honest, the main reason I did the internship because I wanted a free summer. That's it's something that I wanted. But I'm really happy that I was able to have that opportunity. Tabitha, you briefly mentioned him, like his this individual, but we have an internship advisor as well. So when it comes to preparing for an internship, getting an internship, there's a whole dedicated individual, name is Anurag, who is incredibly helpful, who really helps you and walks you through these steps of getting an internship. Now, how I negotiated it was I was fortunate enough that the collab education internship was remote. So I was able to talk to my supervisor, and as long as I completed X amount of tasks per week, it was acceptable. Now, every supervisor is different. They might expect you to show up in person, might give you not only a list of tasks, but amount of hours dedicated. So it's very up to the supervisor um, of, when you apply. But usually they're very understanding and the program is very flexible as well.
Yeah, I did my internship during the summer. I decided to take a summer course that summer, so I was kind of thoughtful about and was very vocal, like open with my supervisors about the fact that I was taking that course and that like the workload that I was going to be able to commit to the internship, like during the course, which was much more on like showing up to some events, maybe like five 5 or 10 hours a week. Honestly, erring more on the side of five, but summer courses are busy. Um, and then I went to like a more like a 30, 40 hour week, like full-time work schedule for the remainder of the summer because it just like worked out to have July, August. Yeah, I think any internship supervisor understands that you're a university student, and I've they should really be able to kind of work with that and understand that they might have to like work with your class schedule and location and these things. Um, and I think as long as you're upfront and honest about kind of what you need and responsible in terms of upholding the expectations that you've agreed to with them, it really isn't an issue, and I think it can be managed on top of a course load. I mean, I think you have to know yourself and your commitments and needs. And I think that should be kind of your guiding light, but I think the internship can certainly be managed on top of a full course load, if you're thoughtful and strategic, as with all things.
Very good insights. Appreciate. There are some questions coming in about admissions. I will say, like Tabitha said, best to go to the website. And also, we very technically, like I said, we're not admissions representatives, so I wouldn't even dare pretend to answer it unless it's about the BA education, just because, like I said, you want to make sure people know the scope of the role and that you're hearing from like the expert, because even an answer from me is not the official answer if it's about admissions. And this is something I'm always happy to talk about the behind the scenes. Admissions for undergraduate programs at McGill are handled by enrollment services and that future students unit I'm talking about. So in case you're wondering, well, why wouldn't you talk about admissions if you're the academic program? It's because at the undergraduate level, the department does not handle admissions. I'm not personally looking at the applications that come in. So it's just about, I'm very happy to speak to the academic side of things and the program. I just can't, and in many ways, I'm not permitted to speak to the specifics around admissions. So I hope you appreciate that. Uh, Someone's asking, how would a final exam look like in this program? Is it just the research project? So to be specific, the final milestone of your program is that capstone research project. You might have exams part of your courses. I will say in education, we tend not to have a lot of exams. I didn't do the BA Ed, but I did the 4-year Bachelor of Education. I think it's a 4-year program, which means I did 40 courses, and I think I had 6 exams in that time. And that's because I chose courses that didn't have exams. But so as far as the program goes, there is no final exam. There's nothing like an exam that you have to complete in order to graduate from the program. Sometimes that exists in other programs. You just have a series of courses, but it could be that there is an exam as part of a final course you take. But there's not like a completion exam or anything for certification like that.
I think I had 3 courses with like midterm final exam structures. I also tend to prefer kind of essay writing and group work, um, or like making of projects. Sam, you did, I think, a minor that focuses more on maybe exam style testing. So maybe you had a bit more than me, but
Yeah, I mean, the you know, Professor Miller, he really emphasizes that there is no like finals or like midterms in the Faculty of Education, but he cannot promise outside the faculty. And
And,
that's
and, and in the faculty, there's one or two.
okay, well, one or two, one or two. But some faculties are very very like a traditional assignment heavy. I know management faculty is very midterm, final assignment. So it depends, but look, there's pros and cons of every minor. I wouldn't let that steer anyone away from applying something that interests you. Uh, there will always be challenges, and working around those challenges will shape you as an individual.
yeah, nicely said. And I'll just add to that as well that McGill does, if exams are something that worry you, McGill has like accessibility, student accessibility and achievement success services as that you can register for and work with. Or if you're actually going, dang, I really prefer finals exams to essays, then I guarantee you can find a path through your minors that will make sure that you have a very exam heavy schedule if you desire. The add drop period, this is kind of in the nitty-gritty of course registration, but there's a period when you can see your course outlines, their syllabi, and you can see what the assessment in a course will be and make choices thusly. So, including changing to a course that has an evaluation method that you prefer, which is a very reasonable thing to seek as you choose courses at the beginning of each semester.
I know we've gone over time, and a few people have had to leave. Thank you for those of you who stayed with us. Like I said, there's a few questions that we just won't have time for, or that are very specific about admissions. So we won't be able to answer them here today. I think there's one last question that I will answer or try to answer. It's very subjective, so others can as well, which is about the BA education compared to the BEd and why might you do one over the other. So I think it's a good one. And again, this is another degree offered by our department. So if you end up doing the BEd, I mean, you're still part of the DICE family, and you might even be in one of the courses with myself or with other BA education students. Sometimes they take classes together. I will say, from my standpoint, and maybe the students will have a different take, and alumni, that the difference between the BA and BF. So on a very objective kind of technical basis, the BA is 30 credits fewer, and so it is generally around 1 year less. It is not focused on teacher education, and so you are able to explore education more broadly. You're not doing courses that are preparing you to teach in a school. That also means that the BA does not have field experience that place you in a host school, and that would require you to do classroom teaching. So if you know that is not something you want to do in the future, and certainly not part of your university, then it allows you to avoid that. The BA has the option for minors. The BEd, you cannot do a minor. You have very much fewer electives in the Bachelor of Education than the BA education as well, and fewer of those complementary courses depending on the program that you're in. Those are some of the technical ones. I will say that although the Bachelor of Education also would allow you to pursue education outside of the classroom, and many of our Bachelor of Education students do, the courses do not necessarily prepare you for that. So you would maybe go to grad school after, maybe, develop skills in other ways. So the Bachelor of Education is a professional degree leading to teacher certification. And so its goal is to prepare you for being a teacher in elementary to secondary schools. And you might come from that be able to translate your skills or develop them in other ways. Whereas the BA education has courses that are aligned with those outside and non-traditional alternative forms of education that you see in organizations and communities, government, higher education, nonprofits. So courses like program design are not offered in the Bachelor of Education. A course like effective communication is not as well. It does not have the capstone research project, for instance. It does not have a course like 21st century learning. Courses, again, that are looking at education more broadly. So from a curriculum standpoint, that's another advantage, or I won't even say that, a comparison, a difference between the BA and the Bachelor of Education. Also, the part-time option is only for the Bachelor of Arts in Education. Those are some of the things off the top of my head, but this is a good question maybe to end on, especially if you are considering the Bachelor of Education. And again, we'd love to have you in the faculty, whichever degree you choose. But for my colleagues here today, any other thoughts on the comparisons? Not even why one better than the other, just how they might compare.
Yeah, I think the classroom community will differ a bit. In the teaching professional degree, the Bachelor's of Education, your courses will largely include, well, I mean, all of your courses in the Faculty of Education will include like other students who are preparing to be, or like in this professional degree program for teaching education, and then you'll take specialized courses related to your, depending on which stream of the professional education degree you're in, you'll take courses like in, say, the Faculty of Sciences if you're becoming a science teacher. Um, and where the BA is, students are going to have, like, your classmates, despite being in the same program, are going to have a lot of different directions and interests that they're pursuing. So your classroom will kind of have maybe a bit less homogeny, like less similarity, even though people will be kind of guided by some of these same questions and overall approach to education, like focus on education. And then similarly, you will, like, courses in the minors or in electives will like have a very broad focus. You can certainly plan to like take them with peers who are also in the program and have your buddies there, but yeah, it's also an opportunity to kind of find again a class where there might be a lot of students who are maybe majoring. For me in international development, for example, I took a course in geography. There were students who were majoring in geography. I was one of a few students from the Faculty of Education. There were people from, many degrees in the program in the university. So yeah, out of faculty courses will always have diversity, and in faculty courses in the BA will have a bit more diversity as well, where the teacher education courses will be very focused on that. Yeah, I think it's very much about, they're kind of different goals working in the same system. We're all thinking about education, but uh, classroom teaching is a very specific kind of skill set and preparatory path. It's very regulated by like certain government requirements, where our program is a little more subject to change or your own kind of journey, and it's a little more shapeable with your own journey, I'd say.
Fabulous. I'm not going to add to that. I think that perfectly summed it up. I will say I work with both groups of students, so regardless of what you applied to, you might be stuck with me either way. The info.education email that you see there on the screen can also answer questions if you're deciding between either of those programs, whether you have questions about the BA education or you're maybe thinking about teacher certification. So Mitchell has thrown it in the chat there, and it is also there as well. Big thank you for you all staying. Hopefully you can walk away with some of your questions answered, or at least you have a way to go from here. So expect a copy of the recording and the slideshow. We'll get that to you sometime soon. Anything else?
Just to echo, thank you everyone for being here, and for those of you who have watched through to the end of this presentation. And again, thank you so much, Tabitha, Helena, and Sam, for being here with us today to help speak the good word about the BA education. And thanks again, everybody, for being here. And hope to see you in fall 2026. Bye.
Good luck, everyone.
Thank you.